Do online alcohol recovery programs work? Can you skip out on rehab and skip out on all that crazy AA stuff and literally just take an online meeting and make it work? Well, today that's what we're going to talk about. I actually have a story of back when I was drinking and I couldn't quit drinking. I had struggled and I found some online places to go to get help, some online AA meetings, a super expensive, I think it was like $2,000 every 2 weeks, online rehab. And I literally tried everything and nothing seemed to work. We're going to talk about why, how, and what you need to look for in an online recovery program to help you stop drinking. A lot of people try to skip the line and just look for a magic pill that's going to stop you from drinking. But I don't think that's the case. And I think if one did exist, you'd be ignoring a lot of problems that come along with drinking. And eventually you'd probably just be a person who's angry and doesn't drink. So today we're going to answer all these questions and talk about how everything works so that you can understand exactly what it takes to get and stay sober, whether you're using online AA meetings, online recovery classes, or whatever it is. We're going to go through the whole 9 yards. So Terry, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and hello everyone. How are you all doing? And I have some opinions on the online recovery programs, and you would think that since we are online, that we would be all, yes, these are the best things. That's not necessarily the case. We here at Talk Sober, we want to talk honestly to you guys, and so that's what we're going to do here about this subject. Can you get sober online? And I do know people that have gotten sober online only, but there's some things involved with that as well. But I am interested in hearing Marcus's story. I don't know that I've heard this one before. So, do you want to tell us your story?
Yeah, so I was trying to get sober, went to therapists, went to counselors, went to all kinds of places, tried Celebrate Recovery, tried all these different things, and I came across this online recovery place, and their sales pitch was on point. They were new back then, so they were one of the new ones. And we went through and tried to get started with them. It was, I think it was like $1,800 every 2 weeks or something, or every week, or it was a crazy amount. It was like a lot, and I thought, okay, well, this is expensive. It must work, right? I mean, if it's expensive, it should work. So that was something that I thought, and I tried to make it work. I signed up for it. The lady was nice. I would say that the best outcome of that recovery program was my counselor in the online meeting was the one that that called in California, it's a 5150, where you're called in as crazy and a threat to yourself, which is why I was put in a mental hospital for the day. So that was a good part, right? She knew enough to be like, no, you need to call it in, stop messing around, get to the hospital, call the cops. And that's what led that, which was good. That helped, and so I tried that out. For the couple months that I tried it, it did not work. I just kept drinking. I kept drinking. She had told me to go get a psychiatrist and get my meds dialed in. And so I went to a psychiatrist, and I remember I drank, and then I went to the psychiatrist, and this psychiatrist he was a drug pusher. It's all he wanted was cash for drugs. And he looked at me as an opportunity to take me off of alcohol and get me hooked on other crap, so that he could get paid instead of, Anheuser-Busch or whoever I was paying at the time. And it was a very humiliating and difficult situation to go to a psychiatrist. And basically his pitch was, hey, thanks for coming in, put $500 on the table. If you don't like what I have to say, you're out $500. You can walk out now if you want, but if you don't like what I have to say, you're basically out your money, and that's all I care about. And he was more or less a jerk. And I walked out. I was like, yeah, if that's your pitch, like all I care about is your $500, then yeah, let's save each other some time. I'm walking out of here, and you're not getting anything. I can tell by the vibe of the dude. It was basically like, I'm going to prescribe you stuff that you probably shouldn't have in exchange for money that I probably shouldn't have. And it was very difficult. And I went through many rabbit holes going through it, because what you're going to learn, I don't know if you remember this, Terry, but our rehab counselor would always say, everyone is an expert with someone else's dog. They come in and they're like, hey, you know what you should do with your dog? This is what you should do. And it's the same thing with online alcohol recovery, looking at Reddit and looking at all these things where everyone knows what to do. Yet, very few people talk about chemical dependency. And even in that online recovery program, they didn't talk about chemical recovery. It was basically a private 3-to-1 person AA meeting online that I paid $2,000 a week for. And I found that for me, going to AA to try to get sober was very difficult for me, because I needed the initial detox, which is deadly. You got to go to the doctor for that. And I also needed the initial, here is what is going on with you, and here's what to do, rather than, keep coming back, go to meetings, meeting makers, make it, all that stuff. Okay, is that stuff true? For some people, yes, it is. Some people go to AA and never turn their back and never drink, which is good. For me, I needed something of substance, because for me, I grew up in religious programs. I was a preacher. I knew the spiel. And the roots of AA are rooted in religion. That's where it came from. I mean, if you do the research, that's where it came from. Is it a religious program now? Well, they tout it as spiritual, which, okay, spiritual versus religion is definitely two different things. But the roots were there, and that was something where I was like, okay, how is getting another religion going to help, when for me, religion was the problem, or one of the big problems. And having to do the higher power and all this stuff, it didn't make sense to me, because I knew something else was at play. I knew it wasn't just, I'm a moral failure, I need to get right with the higher power of my choosing and go through these steps to get sober. Do those help? Yes. When I looked at it, no one described the problem, they only described the solution. And for me, that was difficult, because I needed to know what was going on with me. I mean, I asked over and over. I went to therapists, I went to psychiatrists, I went to all these people, and no one was like, here's what's going on, here's how alcoholism and chemical dependency works. Because if I didn't know the problem, then I didn't really know what solution was going to work. Now, when I went to the regular rehab, and they had told me over and over for 30 days straight, which again, regular rehab was a very expensive AA meeting with lectures about alcohol and recovery. So there was an AA part, which was probably 95% of it. And then there was a 5% part, which was, here's a chemical dependency, here's what goes on, here's why you are a drug addict and or alcoholic. Here is why. You're not a moral failure that just gave up on life and needs to go down to the street and get drugs on the street. Okay, that I can live with, because I thought up until this time, well, I'm just the biggest failure and loser on the planet, and I would rather have drugs than my family. That's not true. It's not true for any of you. Like, if you sit there and people are like, why do you care about this more than anything? And people did say that to me. Why do you care about alcohol more than anything in your life? Why will you let your family fall off, your business fall? Why will you let everything go but alcohol? And I had to look at it and say, am I a moral failure? Is that my problem? Maybe I'm a degenerate. Maybe I do need a higher power of my choosing, right? Hopefully I pick one that doesn't think I'm a moral degenerate. That would be helpful. But for me, looking at it, I needed to know, no, your brain has been hijacked by a chemical, all right? Maybe you drank because you had issues in the past. Maybe there were some failings and shortcomings that you had in the past. Sure, those are separate from being an alcoholic. Like you can be, we talk about it all the time, which is why I love that Terry is the person I do this with, because for all intents and purposes, looking on the outside, Terry should not be an alcoholic. He had a good upbringing. His family was good. I mean, what you got to drink about, right? And he's talked about this numerous times on these calls. So why did he become an alcoholic and I became an alcoholic when you can look at my lineage and my lineup and say, yeah, this guy. Like if you had, the table out with the chips and we were betting on who's going to be the alcoholic, you guys would all bet on me and probably not on Terry. Why? Well, because chemical dependency doesn't care who you are. Chemical dependency doesn't have a reason to get started. You drink enough, you get hooked, that's the end of it. That is the end of it. It's a cycle, right? You get in the cycle of chemical dependency. Now, are there issues and failings? Are there things Terry had to take a hard look at in his life and fix them up so that he didn't have to drink anymore? Sure, absolutely. Are there for everyone else? Sure, absolutely. Are the 12 steps good to go through? Absolutely. However, I also think that it's an after thing. Like, go through them after. Because if you put the cart before the horse, and someone like Terry comes in rehab, or someone like me comes in rehab, and I say, well, Terry, you're a moral failure. You're a degenerate. You need to get right with God. He's going to be like, dude, I listen to the Grateful Dead, so none of that shit applies to me, right? I don't want to hear that. And, that would be something where it might not be the most helpful. And it might also not be true, right? The moral failing part and the chemical dependency part, they don't intersect. And so for me, the online recovery programs did not address that. Now, we try to address it in what we talk about, but I found that a lot didn't. What are your thoughts on that, Terry?
Well, you have so much to think about. Thank you for all that. That's great. Well, first, before I talk about that, John, congratulations on 6 days. 6 days is the toughest part for many people getting sober, and now you need to continue. You need to make sobriety your top priority in life. Don't think that you got this yet. Keep going. Keep putting your priority for sobriety. And congratulations to Cecilia. What is that? Somewhere around 3 years you got. Great. And congratulations to everybody else that has sobriety, and anybody that's trying to get there. You can do this. And for me, I did not try an online program at all. I used online a lot to check, okay, I've had this many drinks and this amount of time. What would my blood alcohol content be? Can I go out in public? Da 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 da. That's about what I used the internet for when I was still drinking. I did get sober in a hospital, and I tell you, that's the one thing that's really important is, can you get sober online? You need professional help, man. I mean, if you're trying to get sober, you're trying to get sober with an alcoholic mind. Like Marcus has just been talking about, you're chemically dependent. Your mind has been hijacked by alcohol. You've got to get professional help so that they can guide you in the right direction, take you through the dangerous detox, all that. It's super important to do that. And I don't think that online covers that as far as getting sober. Once you are sober, now Marcus mentioned real quickly, there's kind of two sides there. So you get sober and then start working on staying sober. Now, online programs can help, and I said right in the beginning that I have some friends and some people I know, acquaintances, things like that have gotten sober. And I know a lot of people that have gotten sober since, the shutdowns in 2020. They weren't able to get to meetings or go to in-person things to work on their sobriety. And that's how they had to do it. But, and this is huge, is that they had a mindset change. And that's that as I just said to John, is sobriety became their top priority. Everything revolved around being sober. What am I going to do today? How am I going to stay busy? How am I not going to take a drink today? And online support programs can be very helpful in that. There's online meetings, and there's online programs. They can be very helpful in that. You definitely have to be careful which ones you pick, but how are you going to know unless you try it? What I did when I got sober is I tried everything I could find, every program I could find, and it eventually whittled down to the AA meetings and the hospital recovery group. Those are the two things I did. They were both in person, and that's what I did. And yeah, after like 6 or 7 months of going to the hospital recovery group, I realized that it really wasn't helping anymore. It had its purpose in the beginning, in that early sobriety. It helped me a lot. And I stuck with AA, and I still have many friends in the program, and I do go to a meeting here and there. So um, that's really helpful. And like I said, and I'm sure some of you have gotten sober online, and it's been effective for you. And so I can't knock it at all. I think online recovery is great with today's technology. We can meet online, but there is um, a benefit to being in person. If you notice my thumbnail, there I am sitting there in a Zoom meeting with a sobriety quote on the other screen, and I've got a glass of wine in my hand. I know that that's what a lot of people are doing when they're going to these AA meetings, and they're thinking, okay, I'm going to keep going to these, and maybe this will change my attitude, and I won't want this drink that's in my hand. And that happens. And maybe if that's you, that's maybe you need to get to that doctor and get to some in-person meetings. I mean, you're not going to be able to hold a drink in your hand when you're sitting in a meeting. It's just not going to work. Sometimes that personal accountability is what we need. And for me, when I got sober, it was all about little pieces of accountability. So I went to in-person meetings, um, and I did talk to people over the phone. I mean, I could cheat then, but I had lots of phone conversations and emails and texts and all that. But I had these little pieces of accountability. I also have a significant other that held me accountable. And not that that is what's going to keep me sober, because the other thing I have to realize is that my sobriety is my responsibility. So I have to take responsibility for it. Yes, when you're first getting sober, you have that hijacked mind by alcohol, but you have to really want it deep down in your heart. We have a chapter called the 2 foot drop, and that's where that where we know we need to get sober, and then when that thought really drops down to our heart, drops 2 feet, then we really understand it, we really feel it, we really want it, and we do everything we can to get sober. And that's what happened with me, and that's what has to happen to get sober, that 2 foot drop. And whether it's online or in person, or better yet, a combination of both, because I personally think there isn't just one program, one way to get sober. Everybody has to figure it out themselves. But once you get all that, you're well on your way to sobriety. Um, Keeping sober is so much less effort than trying to stay drunk. I tell you, for me, and I don't know if any of you relate to this, I'm willing to bet you do, but it was a lot of work trying to stay drunk. I had to think about, do I have enough alcohol? How much can I drink? Can I go do things? I got to go shopping. I haven't been shopping in 3 weeks. I got to get some food in the house. How am I going to hide this so that people don't call me out on my drinking and make me tell me I need to quit? I don't want to do that. How am I going to take care of the legal issues that I've caused? Things like that. And that was a lot of work, man. And now it's just a little bit of work. When I first got sober, I did have to put quite a bit of effort into it, and unfortunately, that's kind of the way it is. There is no easy answer. Don't believe those thumbnails from videos that say you get 9 days, you won't want it at all, you'll be done, alcohol will be got out of your life. No, you got to work at it, and it takes your effort to do it. But that's what we try to help show you in our program. is how to change that mindset. So it's not so difficult. And it can be done. Anybody can do it. I've seen people that are just, they're gutter drunks, and they were in the drug-infested neighborhoods of San Francisco, and they've got great lives now, and they're doing fine. They have families. People care about them. They care about other people, and it's great. So yeah, it can be done. Getting sober online, getting sober is a challenge. And I think how you do it, you need to figure out what works for you. But the way to figure that out is to try everything you can right now. And that's I think is the best way to go about it. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think understanding. Oh, we got an echo all of a sudden. Is that on your end?
No, you're just a little bit tunnely.
Testing. Now I'm hearing it on testing. Okay.
I don't hear it.
Okay. Are you hearing me through your speakers?
Oh.
It went away. It went away now, so.
Sorry, I'm hearing you through Skype.
Okay. Yeah, I think the key is, for me, was looking at chemical dependency, because once I separated that, then it didn't so much, like, if you look at AA and lots of programs, they lump everything together where it's like, hey, if you do all this, then you won't drink. For me, I needed something right away that would help me right now. Yeah. And it was, hey, this is chemical dependency. You are dependent on a chemical. If you get rid of the chemical, you won't be dependent on the chemical, and then you can deal with everything else. So it was top of mind, top of everything was chemical dependency. Get rid of chemical, I win. Life might suck. For the first year, it was not great, but it was sober. And AA's great. I went last week I went Saturday to get my 10-year chip, so that was fun. I like that. And I think the key, thanks, Terry. I think the key was I had to look at chemical, and they asked me, they said, well, you've got 10 years, tell everyone how you did it. And I'm like, I would like to say that, I went through all the steps and I was a moral, good guy and I found a higher, no. I found out that if I kept drinking, I would die, and that drinking caused all these issues in my life, and that I was chemically dependent, and I was terrified that I was going to get in the loop again of the word. Like, think about the worst day drunk ever. That day you wake up and you are so shaky you can't walk outside. You can't even hold a drink without spilling it. Your mind is racing. You feel like you have the flu. You can't function like a normal person. I didn't want that again. And I knew, because of the way chemical dependency worked, that was right around the corner. And luckily for us, I know someone was saying they never talked about chemical dependency in their rehab. I know for us, it was drilled in my head that, look, is there a problem you have? There is. And it is the problem by you taking a drink and you choosing to take that first drink. After you take that first drink, you lose, right? I was talking to someone at a meeting recently, and they had 6 years, and they went and had a beer and then came back. And it was like, okay, is that a relapse? I don't know. Depends on how you define relapse. Was it a relapse of the mind to go and drink? Yes. Was it a relapse like, hey, he went out and partied and got drunk and 5 days later decided to get sober? No. But that's what we're talking about. The reason I don't do that is because I know one little drink will throw my brain off. And after that one drink, no matter how harmless or how good it might seem, or how crazy things are, that's going to put me into chemical dependency and a spiral I might not find my way out of. I mean, think about it. When you were drinking, Terry, did you say, I really like wine. One day, I want to be on my couch, doing nothing, feeling like crap, and I want my life to completely suck. And I want everything I love dear to me, except luckily we had dogs at the time, and the dogs are like, hey, buddy, I love you no matter what, right? I want everything dear to me to not be around anymore. We never sat down and said, this is what we want, pour me another glass. Nobody here was like that.
I never did. And my dog wasn't loving me very like that. He was like, "Are you going to take me for a walk?" What happened?
Yeah.
I used to get walked every day.
Mm. Yeah, and we didn't set out to do that. So if you didn't set out to do it that time, but you drank and that was the outcome, what the hell do you think is going to happen if you try drinking again? It is
Right.
inevitable. It is inevitable. I know the way my brain works. I know the way that chemical tweaks me just enough to not see. It's like, you'll know this, Terry, but some people that are not in places where waves are powerful. Here in Florida, waves aren't that powerful. But in California, when you go swimming in the beach and you go body surfing and you're swimming out there, have you ever had a time where the wave took you and spun the crap out of you and you didn't know which way was up?
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, I don't know which way is up. I could literally drown. That is what the chemical does to you. It might be subtle. You might not be thrashing around on the bottom of the ocean, but it subtly makes you not know which way is up and not know which way is right and wrong and up and down and everything. It throws you off because it's a chemical. I don't care who you are. Chemical dependency affects you chemically. I was talking to someone recently who struggled with recovery and, recently went through health issues where they had to take all kinds of stuff. And unfortunately, some of the stuff they give you does affect your brain. And a lot of people, they don't make it through that with sobriety. And our minds and our bodies are so fallible to chemicals, it's not even funny. And one of the things I had to realize is I'm not powerful. I'm not strong. I can't beat this. This chemical will beat me. Just like I remember when I was a kid, not a kid, but I was like 19, and I had to have a procedure. And I remember they gave me these like count backwards from 10, and you never make it to like 8, right? They put the thing on count backwards from 10. By the time you're at 9, you are, watching cows jump over the moon in your dreams. And I remember the feeling trying to fight it because I didn't want to go under. I was scared. But I tried to fight it, and it didn't last. And then when I came to, I went home, and I used to be a magician, and there was a magic special on TV that night. And I wanted to watch it. This is back before TiVos and DVRs. We had to record it on a tape, and I don't think my VCR worked. And I wanted to watch this really, really badly, and I couldn't. I could not stay awake because the drugs they gave me made me fall asleep. And every time I blinked my eyes, I fell asleep. And it's the same with alcohol. Like, you wouldn't come in there and be like, hey, loser, why can't you stay awake? What's the matter with you? No, I'm altered by a chemical. That is what happens. You cannot fight it. Alcohol is the same way. You can't fight it. Maybe one beer, one martini, one glass of wine won't affect you, or so you think. But it does affect you. Just a little bit. Enough to where you can't call the shots anymore in your sobriety. And that'll lead to relapse, and that'll lead to struggles. And when you realize, I am fighting a chemical battle. Do I have moral shortcomings? Sure. Absolutely. Do I have things that the 12 steps would help? Absolutely. But it's a chemical problem. And when you deal with the chemical problem, you don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to drink because I know what it's going to do. I'm like, why would I want to do that? I'm going to take a drink, and I don't know if I'm going to end up on the floor 5 days later with everything gone. That's what it does. That's what I've proven it to myself time and time. You know how many times when I was trying to quit drinking, I would say, tonight's the night. I'm not going to get drunk. I'm going to have 3. Drunk again. Tonight's the night. I'm going to stop drinking at 10. If I stop drinking at 10, it's okay. Today's the day. I'm not going to drink in the morning. And I did
Yep.
this over and over because I was fighting the wrong battle. I thought, oh, you know what? My courage and my strength shall see me through. You're fighting a chemical, it will kick your ass. It'd be like me going to the doctor being like, you ain't gonna put me out, buddy. I know you went to anesthesia school and you're making about $4,000 to put me out for 5 minutes. I'm gonna fight it. He's gonna look at you and say, I haven't given you the drugs yet, but you're acting like I did because you can't fight this. You will lose. It is a chemical issue. And then I realized, okay, if it's a chemical issue and I don't have the chemical, I will win. All I need to do is not have the chemical. That's it. It's all I need to focus on. And that's what I did the first 90 days. I went to 90 meetings in 90 days like they told me to. And I had it, drilled in my head. Okay, here's what people struggle with. Here's all this. But in the back of my mind, I would leave a meeting and I'd want to drink. I'd say, yeah, I'd like to go to the bar. That was a tough meeting. And I said, you know what? Chemical dependency, that's the chemical. I'm getting more of what I don't want by having the chemical. So I drove past the bar. And I kept driving past the bar. And I kept thinking, I'm not going to drink. I don't want to drink because that's what it's going to do. Would I like a drink? Yeah, sometimes back then a drink would have been real nice. Would have helped me through whatever I was going through for about 4 minutes. But I knew it's going to lead to chemical dependency. And that's what I found was the problem with alcohol recovery programs, online and off. They didn't talk about that. I think, and unfortunately, and I think it was me and Terry's quest to find the cheapest rehab possible. It was like there was some that were like $90,000, and ours was like, yeah, come on in, I got you. What do you got, buddy? And it wasn't super cheap, but it wasn't, foofy. We weren't petting horses and crap.
No, we weren't.
But I think that was the biggest favor ever done to us, because I needed someone to say, you know what? It's chemical dependency, and you keep going back into it. You keep going back into it, and it's chemical, and that's all it is. Moon Toad says Jesus is the way. He can be for some people, but again, if you're following a religion with chemical dependency and you're still dependent, doesn't matter what you do. It's a chemical thing. You look at it, and that is the issue. I found that for me in the beginning of sobriety, I brought my Bible to rehab, and I was like, okay, maybe that's what I need. But then I realized, aside from everything else in my life, this is chemical dependency. And can religion take that away? Not if you still drink the chemical. You can't. Like, you could go to church all day. I went to church drunk many times because I'd have anxiety at church. So I'd get loaded before I went to church. And it was great. Had anxiety, but, I was there and I was looking for Jesus to be the way. And, maybe I was ignoring the signs that chemical dependency was what it is. And that's what I'm saying here is, one of the interesting things, and being the religious person that I was that used to preach everywhere, I studied a lot of what makes people change, because it was interesting. It was like, you see this guy who's a complete derelict in society. He falls over at church one day and gets up, and hallelujah, he's a different person. What happened? There's a really good book by Vincent James or William James. I think it's William James. And he talked about why did conversions happen. Interesting fact, if you read what happened, because back in the 1800s, they'd have a guy on the soapbox, he'd be preaching, people would fall in the street, and his revival would happen. And I was like, well, what happened there? Well, when they did that, oftentimes it would be several days without food, several days without the proper nutrition, without the proper sleep, and all of a sudden these people have this transformation. I think it was chemical. Because oftentimes if you get people in a weakened state chemically, they will be susceptible to whatever you teach them, whether it's Jesus, whether it's, Buddha, whether it's, a cult, whatever it is, they're going to be susceptible to it. And I think the point I'm trying to make is that there's nothing wrong with religion. There's nothing wrong with Bible. There's nothing wrong with whatever you want or choose to do. But if you are chemically dependent, that is what needs to be fixed first. Because let's say you go to church and, the guy knocks you over with his coat and you're healed from alcohol, right? We've all seen the guys on TV. And you're healed from alcohol. Okay, you go home and you're like, God healed me from alcohol. I don't need to drink anymore. Great. But you didn't address the chemical dependency. So one day you might just think, well, I got Jesus on my side. I can have a beer. I mean, Calvin, who invented Calvinism, loved ales. All the great preachers of old loved strong ales. They loved it. I think the Baptists were a little less, or maybe they were into it. There was one group that was not into ales, but a lot of them were. You got Calvin, you got Spurgeon, they drank. They drank hard stuff. They drank ales. They enjoyed it. So down the road, and they probably weren't chemically dependent. I don't think they were alcoholics. I think they just liked a good stiff drink every now and again. But if you don't deal with that and you get saved from the religion or saved from alcoholism through religion, you never really dealt with the chemical dependency problem, right? And you see it all the time. You see the people that are very religious and they have really big struggles because they're not dealing with the struggle they have. It's like, okay, if you deal with the struggle, it's kind of like the old story. And the old story is, there's this guy who's on a boat. He falls off the boat because there's a big storm, and he prays to God, my boat sank, come save me. And all of a sudden, this dude comes by on a big boat. I guess he's rowing it, right? Because we're doing the rowing here. And he's like, hey, get in this boat. We're going to help you get to land. He's like, no. I prayed to God. He's going to come save me. All of a sudden, this helicopter comes, drops the rope. Get on. Come on. We're going to get you out of here. No. I prayed. God's going to come save me. All these things happen. And all of a sudden, the guy drowns. And he gets up to heaven. And he's like, God, why didn't you save me? He said, I did. I sent a helicopter. I sent a boat. I sent apparently some rowboat. And you rejected all of them. And maybe, just maybe, we need to look at chemical dependency apart from everything else. It's not that you can't have religion or whatever it is later. It's that there's a problem at hand and the problem is staying sober. And the chemical is what's going on. And maybe for the religious people, maybe God's saying, you know what? You're chemically dependent and the way out of it is to not have the chemical anymore. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. What do you think about that, Terry?
Well, I think whatever's going to work for you, as I said, whatever's going to work, you need to find your way. And I have a friend that he was a bishop, and he is an alcoholic, and he's recovered. I don't know, he's probably, I'm not sure exactly how long, maybe 2 decades sober, something like that. But yeah, he had a tough time while he was a bishop with alcohol, and he had to take care of his chemical dependency. But it's what's going to work for you. You have to find your own path, and that's what's most important. And yeah, whatever, you got to try everything. You can check out our program too. Our program at talksober.com. We have a program that you should check out if you're trying to stay sober. And we talk about a lot of this, changing that mindset, how to stay sober, how to make your life so that you don't have to fight alcohol, how you don't have to run from alcohol. And it's a 30-day program, and you can take it as long as you want or as quickly as you want. Either way, it's all good. And go over to talksober.com and check that out. Or if you want, we have you could get a private call with Marcus and myself and talk to us about your sobriety journey and maybe some of the struggles that you're having with. So go check that out, definitely. But as far as whether whether you need religion or not or whatever it is, yeah, you just try it. Try everything. It's okay. The key is try not to listen to what you don't think is going to work. Try to listen to the things that you relate to. Try to listen to things that you think you can do. Some other things are going to come, and as your sobriety progresses, that you're going to be able to do that maybe right now you're like, there's absolutely no way I'm going to do that to stay sober. And just try it. The key is to keep an open mind. When you're trying to learn something new, it's important to keep an open mind and not to shut out the things that you don't agree with. And that for me, that's how I was able to get sober, how to stay sober, and how to stay sober until now. Marcus was, I did want to bring up one point. Marcus was talking about the chemical dependency and obviously, but he just picked up his 10-year chip. He's got 10 years of sobriety. I don't. It's another 2 months before I get my 10-year chip. And that's because, and we were in rehab at the same time. And that's because when I got out, I did not put that chemical dependency factor in front of everything else. I thought I could take that one drink. And that one drink led to many, many more. And that led for a few weeks of a terrible time, drinking nonstop, right where I left off when I quit drinking before. And it took me a couple months to get back to stopping drinking. But and I'm sure many of you have gone through similar situations, and it's not easy, especially when everybody in your life thinks that you are sober and you're actually not. It's just it's a fight the whole way. But you can do it. Go on over to talksober.com. Check it out.
Absolutely. And remember, chemical dependency, we're not saying religion doesn't work. We're saying that if you have a chemical problem, nothing will work until you fix the chemical problem.
Absolutely.
That's really what we're looking at, because the first 6 months of my sobriety, I was trying to cling to religion, and it might have helped for a little bit. Good. Then I realized, there was a lot of problems that I personally had tied into it. I was in very abusive, crazy churches. Not abusive like physically, but mentally crazy stuff, right? And I had to realize that the chemical was, at that time, at that point in my life, what was everything. And I never want that back. And so even with, let's say you're, crazy AA guy or crazy church guy or this or that, even though I do have my spiritual ways of looking at life with, I like Alan Watts, Ram Dass, even though I do have that, I still have to submit to the fact that chemical dependency will kick my ass. Yeah. No matter what I have, it will, you could go to the Pope, and if he drank as much as me, he'd be chemically dependent. Plain and simple. You give the Pope chemical, if you give someone enough drink, they will get drunk. I don't care what religion they are. If you have enough, you will get drunk. It is a fact. Now, it's not the same for everyone. Back then, I could have a lot. Now, probably not so much. But you got to realize the chemical part, and that's what we're stressing, and that's what we talk about at Talk Sober. And if you're looking at sobriety like, holy crap, nothing works, I keep relapsing, I don't know what is wrong with me, I don't know what's going on, then I would submit to you that it's probably a chemical dependency issue. And I wish someone had said, Marcus, put the self-help books down, put the Bible down for a minute, put this down a minute, listen, it's chemical. Deal with chemical. Deal with that first. It's like when you're on an airplane, and if you've ever ridden on an airplane with kids, they tell you, if there's a change in cabin pressure and the masks drop down, put your mask on first. And every parent goes, what the hell? Nah, I'm putting my kids on first. I take care. The reason they do that is because they know little Timmy's going to grab onto it and start swinging, and Sally's going to throw a fit, and your other kid is going to be throwing it and playing with it, and you're never going to get yours on, and you're going to pass out, and then your kids will pass out too because none of you got oxygen. If you put yours on first, you will have oxygen to be able to deal with the other people. Very important. Alcohol, chemical dependency. Deal with that first, much like you would deal with the airplane pressure. Take care of yourself and the issue at hand first. That is the big, big thing. If there's a fire in your house, you're not going to look for defective lumber. You're going to look for a fire extinguisher. If the fire alarm goes off, you look for the fire. You're not going to change the batteries in the alarm because you know it's alerting you to the fire. You got to take care of the most important thing first, and I think that's really, really important. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully you guys get that. And if it does resonate with you, check out TalkSober.com. We've got all kinds of resources. Join the Talk Sober course. It's like less than $1 a day. We help you understand the things that helped us, which is very, very, very important. And I think that's important. So thanks for being here, guys.